Hello, and welcome to 2005. Horrifying, I know. And this is YouTube, but it's not the YouTube you know. No widescreen, no HD, just blurry figures that vaguely represent the human form. But hey, we're all still excited for the new Smash Bros.
Here it is, YouTube.com. The website that will eventually conquer the internet is right here, with videos like Denny's, On Top of the World, and Father's Day Special. None of them are by massive creators with gold or ruby play buttons or sponsors from mobile apps. They're just people doing whatever. It's innocent. It's playful. It's much different than the YouTube of now.
So let's go back to old YouTube. Back to that era that so many people are nostalgic about. The YouTube that shaped my childhood and the internet alike. Actually, let's go back to 2002.
So what was the internet like circa 2002? Well, slow. Laggy. Websites took like 5 minutes to fully load in. Some people are still listening to every time they want to connect. It took an average of 12.5 minutes to download a song using a 56K modem. So on an internet like this, watching videos was a novelty. In the late 90s, Van Halen released their new music video exclusively onto the internet and produced very expected results. I think that's Eddie, and that's Van, and that's Halen. But that was the 90s. By 2004, technology had advanced enough that we had at least a couple video sharing platforms. And there was one in particular. One that didn't have any of the polish that would make YouTube stand out, but damn it, it had one catchy jingle. It was something dumber. Even stupider. Stupid videos. Does anyone else even remember this website? Because stupidvideos.com was my shit. It was not a good website, though. It was buggy, the design was not. The video quality was about as good as our routers could handle. But for someone who grew up on AFV, it was perfect. This was probably the website most like YouTube before YouTube, despite the lack of polish. It was basically YouTube, but only fail videos, presented in glorious VHSP. Unfortunately, there's very little info about the website and the people who made it. It doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. I can't get a good look at what it used to look like, because when I put it into the Wayback Machine, this happens. It's just like how I remember it. Its fame was very short-lived, because just as it was starting to get steam, YouTube just kind of bitch-slapped it out of the way. So there's not much else to bring up. But hey, can I take this time to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Flash media player? Newgrounds. Everything Newgrounds. It was a massive platform for Flash animated content. I don't want to cover it too much because someone already did a whole video about it and y'all should just check that one out. And like the title of that video says, it was the golden age of Flash animation for a good reason. It was the start of all the careers of these guys.
Speaking as someone who went there back in the day, or now, it was an amazing time on Newgrounds. Like, every day you'd find new and hilarious content. Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny, Super Mario Bros. Z, that weird Badger video, and Peanut Butter Jelly Time. All of this came from Newgrounds. Not all of this holds up in 2021, but here in 2005, it's some primo shit. Also, not on Newgrounds, but I have to bring up Homestar Runner. That's honestly something I could make a whole video about, so I won't say much, other than the fact that I think I went on there like twice as much as Newgrounds. So that's what the internet was like before YouTube. In terms of video platforms, it was very scattered. Everyone was trying to make the next big thing, and none of them really hit it off. Until
2005. The prehistoric age of YouTube. The main reason why I started making this video is in my research for the history of Vine video, I found these playlists of videos from 2005. The more I watched, the more I thought, this could just be its own video, because they're so fascinating.
Hi, Marley.
Okay, so maybe the videos themselves aren't very interesting, but I think they're fascinating as a whole, because they're a peek into the first baby steps of YouTube. It's like finding cave paintings. Like, where do I even start with this one? Someone recorded this video, found YouTube, which was only like a couple of months old at this point, and decided to post it, not knowing it'd be one of the first videos posted there. Also, what is this cropping? I didn't edit it to look like this. I don't know why I would. This is just how the video looks. There's so much to uncover in these playlists. There's fan-made music videos, parkour videos, a kid licking a shoe, a weird Christmas-themed skit that haunts my nightmares, and these guys named Smoosh? I don't think they'll go anywhere. And of course, the first YouTube video, me at the zoo, which I'm willing to bet you forgot has a dick joke in it.
The cool thing about these guys is that they have really long fronts.
This era of YouTube is very playful. It feels like goofing off with a bunch of friends like, hey y'all, let's make a YouTube video this weekend. There's very little planning, there's no script, there's just a couple of guys with an idea and a camcorder. Oh, and would you look at that, a familiar face commented on this video as well.
I don't mean to glorify this era of YouTube like, oh, it's all downhill from here. I just think it's really cool to see videos like this when YouTube was as small as it ever was and ever will be. You don't get content like this in 2021 unless you really dig for it. Like, honestly, it's like a portal into a different world. So here in 2005, YouTube is definitely shoddy and incredibly unpolished, and not much of it holds up today, but I feel like it at least established the vibe of YouTube going forward.
So, I remember in the early 2010s, YouTube kept updating their layout for what felt like every week, and so a lot of people started saying, oh, yeah, YouTube was better before Google bought it. What they didn't realize at the time is, YouTube was bought in 2006. Google buying YouTube is what made it successful. You know what? Never mind. This is better. So, for the rest of today's video, we'll be talking about 4 main YouTubers / YouTube videos. I plan to do a full deep dive into early YouTube, but there's only so much ground I can cover in one video. So, for today, these YouTubers / videos I've selected represent the firsts in YouTube history. The content that was the most influential and the people behind them. So anyway, 2006 is where the content actually starts becoming watchable and where we start getting our first classics. You might remember stuff like Diet Coke and Mentos, Nunchucks Pro, Numa Numa, and the more problematic songs of Bo Burnham, and also what at the time was the most popular video, Evolution of Dance. Once again with the weird cropping. In 2005, YouTube had a fair amount of traction with about 30,000 viewers a day in just a couple months. And by April of 2006, they had reached a moderately successful 100 million average views per day.
I really don't want to talk about the numbers of YouTube, that's not really what I'm interested in. I just want to establish how much content there was being put out on YouTube at this point. It was a lot. And because of this barrage of content, when something went viral, it went viral. Things just felt bigger back in the day. Or I guess, I'm technically in the day right now, so yeah, things feel bigger here. These are the days when getting 2 million views counted as going viral. And if you want an example of that...
Oh hey, it's these Smosh guys again. Yeah, I had to. What started as a small website created by Anthony Padilla in high school became one of the most popular and successful YouTube channels ever. I really wanted to put Barats and Beretta here because that's the one I grew up with and liked more, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to put my bias aside because Smosh was way more influential. For better or for worse. Their unique style of dumb sketch comedy and even dumber comedy music was the first of its kind back in the day, and it was mimicked by many people. And as their channel continued to grow, even becoming the most subscribed channel ever at the time, their brand of goofy comedy videos proved to be the primary content on YouTube. And they would continue to be pioneers in their field, not just by adapting and changing with trends, but making trends and having people follow them. I didn't even like Smosh back in the day, but at their peak, you could not escape them. And these two videos are what began Smosh's process of world domination. Let's be real, most of the people watching YouTube at the time were kids, either high school or younger, and Smosh catered to that demographic heavily. They still do, to be honest, but my point is, some of those kids really took after Smosh. Some even owe their careers to them. Tomska posted some of his earliest content on Smosh.com. Foot of a Ferret got a big shout out from Smosh at the beginning of his career, and they also inspired the Odd Ones Out to start making videos. Hilariously enough, both Barats and Beretta got hired onto the Smosh team. Glad to see they're doing well. And the most or least surprising, depending on who you ask, Smosh was the channel that inspired Jake and Logan Paul to start making videos on their own channel, Zoosh, which was literally named after Smosh. Go figure. Before we move on, let's talk about gaming. Nowadays, gaming videos on YouTube are a dime a dozen. You got your Game Grumps, you got your Scott the Woz, you got your Donkey and Markiplier, etc, etc. It's an entire genre of content. It has subgenres. It's so big that there was an entire app for it for a while. If you go into incognito mode on YouTube and just keep scrolling, you'll find at least one gaming video. YouTube gaming is massive. And none of that would have happened without... Any and all gaming YouTubers today have James Rolfe or the Angry Video Game Nerd to thank for their existence. Technically, he got his start on his own website, Cinemassacre, but his move to YouTube is when he started growing and when YouTube gaming started. And both he and gaming on YouTube would only continue to grow in the coming years. Also, do you like this format? Do you like this style of reviewing? Well, prepare to see it again and again and again because James's style of reviewing became everyone's style of reviewing. Angry Joe, Scott the Woz, PBG, Pro Jared, The Completionist, Caddickers, JonTron, and everyone's favorite YouTuber, The Irate Gamer. All these channels in some way or another borrowed from James Rolfe. The style of review plus sketch comedy proved to be insanely popular. Everyone did this style. Everyone with a slight interest in video games and something to film themselves with did this style. The reason this series was so successful is because no one was doing it before James or like James. If you wanted gaming reviews before this, you'd have to read and shit. But also, here's the thing. AVGN episodes aren't just reviews. It's a full-on show. It's not just talking about a game to a camera. There's complex cinematography for YouTube, overarching plots, reoccurring characters. There's even holiday specials. It was very clear since the beginning that James was not just a video game nerd, but also kind of a movie nerd too. Look, my point is, gaming content on YouTube is the way it is because of James Rolfe. If it had started later by someone else instead of James, the YouTube gaming landscape would look a lot different. But man, anything's better than reading. Before we move on, could I interest you in my merch? In all seriousness, we have some great stuff over at the merch store, including my very own merch line, Heyo. What is Heyo? Well, it's basically just my default online greeting. It's also made more for people who want to support me, but more subtly, as opposed to literally just wearing a shirt that has my logo on it. We also just came out with a new Christmas-themed line of Heyo merch, if you want to check that out. There might be a Black Friday sale soon, so keep your eye out for that. That's crowdmade.com/collections/MarshallDoesStuff. Thank you, and let's keep going. Indie band OK Go had their first smash hit, Here It Goes Again, pretty much all because of their iconic music video, posted on July 31st, 2006. I mean, the song's good, but treadmill dancing is much more interesting than any song. Now, this is actually the second video they made in this style, but this one took off way more. The other video is fine, but treadmill dancing. So why is OK Go taking off with this incredibly silly music video significant in any way? Well, in the coming years of YouTube, businesses and record labels would start to use the internet, and specifically YouTube, in their marketing. And OK Go, of all the bands and artists out there, were the first to tap into that potential. See, before this, OK Go's music videos were very professionally made. But the band, looking at YouTube and the kind of content that was on it, made these two videos with an intentionally low budget to fit in with the rest of the content on YouTube. And it worked! ACuteDoggi opened the gate for bands and musicians and music labels to start using YouTube as a way of marketing, all by getting some exercise. I kind of feel like they tested the waters with the first video, and once they saw the reaction it got, they went full in on their second attempt. And at the time, it really blended in with those early YouTube hits. It just seemed like they were the same as these other kids on the website, except the only difference is that they were part of a massive record label. Alright, I'm sick of talking. Can someone else take the lead here?
So there's one last bit of content we're going to cover here. One that started just 16 months after the website was up. One that spawned much discussion and debate over its legitimacy. One that, just for a moment, fooled the internet. It was called Lonely Girl 15. Nowadays, Lonely Girl 15 isn't really held up in high regard, mainly because of where the show went years later with its spin-offs and sequels and whatnot. But the original Lonely Girl 15 series was unique at the time for effectively using YouTube to tell a story. Basically, Lonely Girl 15 was a series on YouTube that depicted the character of Bree and her teenage life. But slowly, it was revealed more and more that her life wasn't as normal as it seems. It's a cult. She's in a cult. This was way before Netflix originals and the like, so this was kind of ahead of its time, even if it is a little unwatchable now.
30 down at the bottom, 30 more at the top, all invisible.
But nevertheless, the people behind Lonely Girl 15, like ACuteDoggi from earlier, really seemed to understand how the internet worked, or at least they knew enough to know how to use mystery effectively.
Anybody on Earth can upload a video to YouTube. There's no way of knowing the source. There's no way of knowing the intent.
To be able to throw the wool over the collective audience's eyes and make them believe for just a moment that that's a real girl and this is her real life. There are hints here and there that suggest that this isn't real, and some people were quick to accuse it for being a hoax. But for a good while, fans were genuinely unable to confirm that it was fake, all because that's how the internet was back then. YouTube was a new platform that was far from becoming the absolute juggernaut it is today. So it was harder to debunk something as easily. I think it was the combination of the actress playing Bree in her performance and the interactions they would have with the comments and talking with the fans. It all seemed genuine. At the time, anyway. Years after this, we'd see so many ARGs on YouTube that used similar techniques that Lonely Girl 15 did in its storytelling, interacting with viewers, handheld footage, secret messages, etc. Not to say that this was the direct cause for YouTube ARGs, but just kind of laid the groundwork for them. It also made YouTube as a whole stand out more as a great video sharing platform, and show that it wasn't just the cat video site.
Hey! Okay, I think we can go back to,
That. Yeah. So there we are. A dive into the early years of YouTube. This video has taken so long to make. It's been insane going back and looking at all these old YouTube videos, knowing what it would lead to later down the line. It went from wanting to be like TV to competing with TV. That doesn't happen, and it likely will never happen again. I think it's safe to say that the internet would not be the same without YouTube. It's currently the second most viewed website on the internet, beaten only by Google. And to think it started with all these primitive ass videos. Old YouTube is a fascinating time capsule of the internet's transition from being new to being normal.
I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg. I think the potential of what the internet is going to do to society, both good and bad, is unimaginable. I think we're actually on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying.
It's just a tool, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. No, it's an alien life form.
What do you think? I mean,
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here and you like what you see, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Also, shout out to Red Herring. They're fantastic, they're amazing. They were the voice in the Lonely Girl 15 segment, and they only started their channel about 8 months ago, but I highly recommend you check out their stuff if you're into internet mysteries and ARGs and all that good stuff. Also, check me out on Twitch. I go live Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm a terrible father. Ha ha ha. That's not funny. Also, if you want it, you can support me on Patreon and get access to bloopers and cutscenes and whatever. And you can even have a say in what I do next. Have a good one, y'all. Bye. Here's to all my patrons and your generous donations, like Reilly Zimmerman, TheRealSullyG, nearsightedwaddledee, Aidan Jeffes, Madgythumtas, and Kayson Whitehouse, ACuteDoggi, Peter Marenthyu, and EricJonesBootleg, Peyton, Stanley, Ray, Cooley, and Skruffl. I hope I pronounced your names correct. That was bad. Anyway, also thank you to Jakub Pawluk, mghonor, RTOGamingYT, Jonas Spaghettonas, and AgentKilo. Thank you guys so much.